Well, I think just recap-wise of last week, very similar to what I said after the game. I thought it was obviously a hard-fought game, but after watching, I do feel better about a lot of things. And defensively in particular, we played better than I actually thought. One series in the start of the second half was probably the one thing that jumps out. And then offensively, just efficiency. I think very efficient. Created some big plays in the first half. Second half, I don't know. We weren't quite as efficient. We didn't create some big plays. I'm not saying we changed modes a little bit, but there were a lot of really good things to grow upon. And then actually, the last 6 minutes of the game got a lot of those other guys in the ball game, even though it was still a ball game. But you got those young freshman running backs, got some of those young offensive linemen in the game to take some really good reps in some situations where we still needed to move the ball and get some first downs and continue to run the clock. So as we move past that, we all know it's a big week, and this is something that was told to me, I think, the day after I took the job. Not that I was looking at that in particular as the whole thing happened, but over a year and a half ago, this was something that was brought up, and not something I spent a whole lot of time thinking about until now. And so this is a great opportunity, and I think our guys are extremely excited. As we went into fall camp, these were the things that were in front of us, and we knew that. This is kind of the start. Not that the first two games weren't the start of the season, but we knew that this was going to be the opportunity and the point in time when we really, really get to see where we are and who we are. And so that challenge is in front of us, and I think we're really excited about it.
Luke, you kind of talked about the players and this being a special week. Some coaches have the philosophy of, hey, every game's the same. Do you like the idea that your guys feel like, hey, this is a unique type special opportunity?
I mean, us as coaches like to try to say, hey, it was a routine. We do everything the same way no matter what it is, the faceless, nameless opponent. The realities of those things is probably not true. Some of us can hide our heads and live under a rock like I do, but our guys understand. Our guys are much more aware. And so this was something that had been talked about since spring football, and not by me. I'm not like standing up there and say, hey, this is Alabama week in spring ball, and we're going to do this. And we work on the rivalry weeks. We talk about the teams that we play historically. We don't talk about some of these games, but our guys are all aware of it. So for them, it's been something that, just like me, it's been in the back of their heads, probably a little bit closer to the front of their heads too often. But it's something where I think they really do understand. Like, this is what makes college football, right? There's two things. College football is great, but rivalries and games like this is what really kind of separates college football from everything else.
Luke, you talked about the efficiency of the offense. In the red zone in particular, the passing game just hasn't quite clicked. As you look through it, I know every play is its own situation, but has there been a through line or something you can identify like this?
There's twofold. I mean, I think that, negative yardage plays in the red zone are really, they're a lot bigger than they are out in the middle of the field. And then the ability to kind of say, let it rip. And be a little bit more aggressive. And so there's a balance there. But I do think, Tyler, in some of those situations, there's some things where as we go back and watch, that we can be more aggressive on. But I think so those twofold, being more aggressive, and then obviously you got to avoid the negative yardage plays. Everybody knows things get tighter down there. Things get, every inch is that much more difficult offensively. And defensively we know the same thing. So I think all in all, the efficiency, red zone in particular in the second half, but I think it has a little bit more just with our aggressive nature. It's been not to say a concern, but we've been trying to say, hey, be smart with the football, in particular in the red zone. We had some errant maybe ones in the first week that, you'd like to have back. They weren't touchdowns, but they were shots that you said, oh, that's probably not the time to be aggressive. And so we got to find that balance. Tyler's got to find that balance, but he's got to trust in himself and his ability to, there's going to be smaller windows.
Let's say Luke, former assistant of yours, is on the Alabama staff now with Colin. Just, is it, when it comes to preparation, are you worried just because he knows the defense schematically, or no one going up against the offense too?
No, I mean, sometimes too much, right? I mean, I think that there's a lot of things that they're doing defensively that look similar to some of the things that, I would probably recognize. But there's still, you can think too much. We've changed a bit defensively in some ways. Obviously, as Alex Grinch has come in, we've had some new set of eyes, and in year two found the things that we think we do better with the type of guys that we have. But there's a knowledge on both sides. I think there's a knowledge that he has of playing against the offense every day. But I don't think there's something that's extreme. It's not like, hey, they're going to know every signal. They're going to know everything. We're going to have to go silent. We're going to have to go like. If they worry too much about those things, just like the reverse, if I, watch the defense and say, okay, I think I know exactly what they're doing, then sometimes you spend too much time instead of, really focus on the things that you need to be able to do to be successful and to win a football game. So it's the same. There's some balance to that, but I don't think that there's something that's underlining that's going to have a greater impact on the game than the normal.
Luke, from a big picture standpoint, you touched on it a little bit. How fair is it to use this game to have the number 4th ranked team come into your house? From a bigger picture, give that program assessment. How big is that for you?
Well, it's real big. I mean, every week is an assessment. That's the thing, right? You're evaluating, you're assessing, you're seeing how you're growing, the things that you're doing, but you know where you want to be. And I think that's what we've always kind of, since we walked in the door, and they've always had that here. I think Coach Alvarez has been one of the guys that brought that mentality and that idea in here. And if you want to be the best and you want to compete with the best, then you got to play the best. And this just gives you that opportunity, regardless of what they're ranked, right? I couldn't even tell you that they were 4. But I know this, over the last 20 years, who's been the best team in college football, and there's no doubt it's been Alabama. So regardless of where they are at this moment, this is as good a football team that there is in the country and has been for a really, really long time. And so no matter where you are as a program, it gives you an opportunity to assess a lot of different things.
Coach, with Jake Cheney missing the first half of the week, how do you guys go about preparing with the responsibilities at the mic, knowing that he probably will play the second half as well?
Yeah, you got to make sure that you got enough guys ready, and so those situations are not the easiest thing in the world, but it is what it is, right? Jake will still prepare just like he's going to play, just like he's going to start. He'll still get, probably not as many reps because you do have to get some other guys ready. I think that Tackett will obviously step in and did on Saturday and did a really good job, and then you'll have an opportunity for a few other guys. To kind of fill in, and do you do you move some guys around? Do you try Christian Allegro, move him in there in some situations? There's a lot of combinations I think that we'll look at and be able to, have prepared and ready, and hopefully we won't need them. Hopefully nothing else happens, and you feel pretty good about where you are. But there's a lot of things. Tyler Janzy's a guy that'll, had done a really good job and got hurt in fall camp, and really kind of was only out for about 3 or 4 days, but really, was limited in a lot of things he could do. So he'll take some more reps in there this week as well, and which in the long run will help us.
Luke, you obviously played this program a few years ago in the playoffs. You had a month to prepare last time, 6 days really this time. There are some pros and cons to that. Maybe not getting too far into it.
Yeah.
Just kind of.
Well, there's a lot of different things. How much do you go back to all the Washington stuff? How much do you go back to just what they've done the first couple of weeks? How much do you go back to what you did, a few years ago? You got to be careful. You still got to figure out what it is that you believe your players and your program can handle, and that's what you got to be able to go with. So we do have to find that balance, and that's the challenge to the coaches more than anything, right? We talked about it with somebody that has some idea of who you are and what you've done. Does that mean you got to change? And so I think this is even a tougher week on coaches because, sometimes you want to think you want to be perfect and you want to create some new things when sometimes in these types of games, that's the worst thing that you can do. So our players will be ready. They want anything we can throw at them, but I think it's our job to really make sure we pick and choose, what we expect and get our guys prepared for those things. And then, like we always say, you have to be able to adapt and adjust because there's going to be a lot of different things that are going to happen.
With your outside linebacker group, has that group been maybe as disruptive as you would like, and what stands out to you?
Yeah, I think statistically, no, you haven't seen the production probably from that group, but that's where sometimes you can get, a little bit frustrated. Guys can start to, get into their own heads a little bit. I would say as we went through the spring football and through fall camp, that was a big area where I thought we were a lot different than we were last year. And you might not have noticed that on the Saturdays. And a little bit of that is what we've seen in some situations. They've in week one with a lot of the two tight end stuff, a lot of the, stretches and things that stayed inside. And then even this past week with, the multiplicity of, 12 personnel and 21 personnel, it didn't give those edge guys probably as many opportunities to create some havoc. But it's hard. It's hard on them too. But that's where you got to kind of stand the test of time, and you got to continue to grow. And there'll be plenty more opportunities this week for guys like that. But now it's even more critical that they really are sound in what they're doing, because this is a crew that if you give them an inch, if you give the quarterback a sliver, I mean, 6, 8, 10 yards are not 6, 8, 10 yards like they are normally. He can take it the distance. So it's one of those things where we're right at that position, right? Those guys want to create more. They want to have more production. They want to make some big plays when sometimes, and these are the situations where, guys, you can't be thinking about the big plays. You got to be thinking about the real consistent, sound things, because if you get out of place on a team like this, and in particular a quarterback like this, there's some really bad things that can happen.
You had spoken after Saturday's game about how you would prefer that players not get ejected for targeting penalties.
Not
in
sure we want to
general.
go down this one, but go ahead.
Just what's the pushback you've gotten when you've made that request?
So
in the
I
past?
don't
Do you have
push
any
a whole-
optimism of that ever?
I don't push a whole lot. I'm not on the rules committee. I'm not. If I spend a whole lot of my time, like I've said before, on the rules committees and different things like that, there's so much changing within our programs. We got to really rely upon the people that are, that's their job. Whether it's the head of the officials or whatever that is, we need to rely upon them to kind of recognize the things that we're doing, and we want to take care of student athletes, and so that's a little bit more on them. In the off season, you'll bring it up, but I'm not going to spend a few days down there trying to change the world when everything within your own program's constantly changing. I just voiced my opinion again that somebody needs to take a good hard look at this, because I would imagine there's a lot of coaches that feel the same way, and we can't lose sight of some of these things, even though our landscape is changing and there's a lot of other things we need to worry about. It's still first and foremost about the players, and we need to make sure we give them all the opportunities.
I know it's early in the week, but do you have any feel of where Tywee and Xavier are health-wise?
No. I again, it's Monday, so I wouldn't have an idea. We didn't know till late in the week last week that Tywee wouldn't be available, and we still didn't really know. I mean, it was going to be a kind of a game time decision, and so I'm hopeful, and I would expect that everybody's able to play. But we'll have to push that thing as we get going in the week.
You mentioned before you wanted to see more efficiency offensively consistently. Just on the whole, based on what you've seen through 2 games, what specifically do you think are the areas where this team needs to be better to give itself a chance, not only this week but the rest of the season offensively?
Well, I mean, we talk about. I mean, there's in week one is incredibly efficient, right? I mean, is the number of drives and the points per drive and things like that. We had said after week one it was creating some bigger plays. We did that this past week, and this is the second half. I think the second half we weren't quite as efficient. We didn't take advantage of some of the opportunities that we had, and so I think there's a growth in that. I think that we all know that some shots down the field, some ability to create some of those different plays is something we got to continue to grow with. I don't know how. There's obviously it's a part of the plan to what you got to be able to do, but there's a nature to that of being aggressive, giving your quarterback some freedom to do some of those things and to take some of those shots is where I think that we're trying to figure out where that is, right? We have the utmost confidence in Tyler Van Dyke and his ability to make good decisions, and we've talked about that with the red zone stuff. But we also got to do a little bit better job of giving him some opportunities to take some of those shots down the field that might not be as efficient, right? You got to balance there by saying, hey, how do you become more efficient? Well, becoming more efficient isn't chucking the ball down the field always, right? But you do have to do some things and give some guys some chances and some opportunities to find more ways to create space. And I think that, no matter what offensively, to me, I'm not an offensive guy, but the number one thing I think about when I think about offense is creating space. And how do we do that? We got to still kind of grow in.
Couple more, Jake. I'll say, Luke, with a week like this, I know visits, like recruiting visits, are different when you're trying to prepare for a game. But just how different is it when you're trying to, when you have recruits in town, but especially with Alabama having a big game atmosphere? What are your goals and objectives with these games?
No, every weekend. I mean, guys, we only get 7 of these opportunities to be at your home, right? There's nothing better here. There's 2 things that are great here, in particular in recruiting, right? Summer recruiting visits and things like that they really get a great opportunity to see not just the university and the program, but Madison in general. Game visits, right? I mean, those things are incredible because of the atmosphere, because of all that goes on. So we got to take advantage of that. The unique thing, it's 11 o'clock kick, so there's not a ton of time. We've those ones that are the night kicks or even the later in the day kicks where you can spend some more time with those guys. So it doesn't give you as much time, but it's still as impactful and it's still as important. And we'll do a great job with that. But the number one thing you can do a great job with is playing really well and creating an environment in that stadium that they want to be a part of.
Luke, offensively, I know a goal of yours is to play fast and to put that pressure on the defense. Seems like this year you guys are rotating personnel groupings a little bit more, getting some 12s, some different looks. That slows it down a little bit because it creates that substitution. How do you balance that, like wanting to get guys in the field or in the game, and then making the
that is. You got to pick and choose. You got to pick and choose your times when it's more efficient to go faster and more efficient to slow things down. And in the first 2 weeks, we definitely had a plan to say, look, we want to be in some more 12 personnel. We want to get a little bit bigger. We want to establish some things. Not that we didn't want to go fast, not that we didn't want to tempo things, not that we didn't want to take shots down the field, but there was a definite emphasis on, hey, how do we make sure that late in the year that we've got the tools that we need. We're prepared for that, whether that's 2 tight ends, whether that's slowing things down, whether that's being extra physical. That's a part of that efficiency of what we're doing. So, this is the time when we say, okay, now we got to make sure that we put our best 11 out there and we give ourselves the greatest opportunity, not only to be efficient, to move the football offensively, but also to create some explosive plays.
Luke, I don't think you guys have been tested too far down the field defensively yet this year. Jalen Milroe obviously is probably going to take a number of shots. How do you feel going into this one with even though you guys haven't been tested?
No, that's one of those things again, right? I mean, like the uniqueness of the first 2 weeks. Not that we didn't think people were going to take shots, but the type of games that they were more methodical. They were underneath stuff, run the football. We're definitely going to see it all, and I feel good. I mean, to be honest, we did a lot of that in the spring. We did a lot of that in fall camp in particular, saying, okay, we want offensively to take shots. We're going to script some of these things and make sure our guys are being challenged in ways. But, it's harder when all of a sudden Saturdays come, right? Because that's when it's really what it's all about. So we'll find out. We feel really good. We've done a better job, I think, at being able to mix some things up than to just always consistently putting our guys on islands when they know exactly what it is that they're getting and when they can take those shots. It does make it a little bit more difficult, but their challenges are going to be out there, and that is one of them that maybe we haven't had a ton of, but there's a lot of others as well.
Last 2.
Coach Elijah Hills, he's a guy who's cracked the rotation and played a good amount in week 2. Did you expect him to come along and play as well as he has in the first 2 weeks?
You never quite know. I mean, some of these guys that are transfers, that's the little bit of the difference of where college ball is right now. Even a guy that has come from someplace else, so you call it a bigger place, right? That walks into your place, Tyler Van Dyke. You kind of have an expectation because you've seen him play at the highest level. And then some of the guys like Elijah that walk in here and you're not positive, okay, what level was he playing? How is he going to translate into what he's doing? But it's nice when you have spring. It's nice when you have fall camp and you see those guys. And he was able to do it against our guys. He was able to show some things. Obviously, in week 1, he didn't play a ton. Week 2, he gained a lot more opportunities because of the way he actually performed in week 1. And he's a guy I continue to see us growing with, right? I mean, the situation with having James or of losing James has given other guys a lot more opportunities. Elijah is one of them. Elijah is a guy that probably has taken advantage of that opportunity better than anybody else. And he'll continue to have those opportunities. And to be honest, he's done a really good job for us.
Last one.
Alabama's offensive line came into the season really highly regarded. Seemed to have some issues against South Florida. Just what have you kind of seen when you look at their offensive line?
I think they're still young and trying to figure out the best combination themselves. You know, obviously the Proctor kid didn't play in week 1 and didn't play in week 2, so that probably helped them shift. And not like he wasn't there. I think it happened in warm-ups of game 1, which obviously can throw you for a real loop. And now as you start to move guys from guard to tackle and tackle to guard and things like that, it's not the easiest thing in the world. So if anything, I would say that just finding that rotation, finding that those guys, how they got to all work together, that's of one position that in particular that guys have to work on the same page. It's the offensive line. And if there's anything that maybe has, caused them some of those issues, it's probably just the idea that, okay, now we've got really good players. They've got really good players. It's just getting them in the right places and getting those guys enough reps working together. That would be my guess. Again, everybody defines what they think is struggling, right? And, I don't know that I've seen them struggle a whole lot, but, I think that, some of that shifting has maybe been a little bit of an issue. Good. All right, thanks.